Hello! After reading through your discussion posts, I've created this little PowerPoint so that we could go over what was happening right before the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The PowerPoint is called Information on Hiroshima, which is written by John Hersey, but I will be scrolling through the different slides on the historical facts of World War II, specifically the Pacific Theater. Although this is a crash course into the subject, you will hopefully have a better understanding about this time period. The Pacific Theater of War in World War II was from December 8, 1941 to September 2, 1945. It crossed over two presidencies, Franklin D. Roosevelt and Harry S. Truman. As we know now, presidents can't go over 2 terms. However, at the time, Roosevelt was able to run for more than 2 terms. It wasn't a law at that time. And he tried his best to help the United States get through World War II. Now, before Pearl Harbor, the United States did not want to go to war. Americans had a bad taste of World War after the first one. After the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor, however, Roosevelt declared war, and the American people were in favor of it. In fact, it was the very next day, on December 8th, when he declared it. Now, why did Japan bomb Pearl Harbor? What happened right before that was that Japan was trying to become imperialistic and push their way through China and the Philippines. Japan had advanced into the southern part of French Indochina, which was the southeast part of China. This led to the United States imposing a total embargo on oil and oil products to Japan. The commander-in-chief, Yamamoto Isokoro, urged the plan to attack Pearl Harbor. Isoroku did not want to attack the United States, but the Japanese forces needed oil and oil products in order to continue their use of machinery. Japan sent delegates to discuss with United States at a truce. At the same time, however, Japan also launched the attack on Pearl Harbor. This was to catch the United States off guard. Shortly after bombing Pearl Harbor, Japan continued fighting and bombing in various places in the Philippines. This was so that the United States Army would also be met with losses. The United States Joint Chiefs decided to split the Pacific War into 2 major theaters, so that they could handle both the Philippines and Japan. It was at this time that FDR signed the Executive Order 9066, which ordered all persons of Japanese descent to leave the West Coast. Those who were still here were placed in internment camps here in the United States. In 1939, physicists in the United States had learned that Germany was demonstrating experiments on the possibility of nuclear fission. By August 2nd, Einstein had warned Roosevelt about the devastating dangers that might result in Nazi Germany developing the weapon. Shortly before this, Roosevelt had created the Office of Scientific Research and Development. After 4 months from when Einstein had warned Roosevelt decided on December 6, 1941, that a nuclear bomb should be developed. This office, along with the War Department, had the joint responsibility of creating the weapon. This effort became known as the Manhattan Project. Under the direction of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the scientists and engineers finally succeeded in a testable nuclear bomb, or atomic bomb, on July 16, 1945. At that time, the war with Germany had ended, and unfortunately, FDR had passed. Truman was his successor, and was the one who gave the order to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. When the Potsdam Declaration of July 26th failed, plans for using the atomic bomb went into effect. What that means is that the United States asked Japan to surrender. When Japan refused, then the first bomb was ordered to be dropped. One last piece of information before I go to the next slide is that the second bomb wasn't dropped until after Japan was asked a second time to surrender. They refused once more, and then Nagasaki felt the same thing that Hiroshima had just felt. Japan did not believe that the United States had another devastating bomb, and they took the gamble. It did not work out in their favor. And this information leads us to Hiroshima, written by John Hersey. John Hersey was a Pulitzer Prize winner and an American writer/journalist. He, along with others, created a new style of journalism called New Journalism. This new style had text written as though it was a story being told, not a regular, dry reading of facts. As you read Hiroshima, you may think that this is a story made up of 6 characters. But it is important to realize that these 6 people, as you see here, are real people that Hersey interviewed for the book. Their names are Kiyoshi Tanimoto, Mrs. Hatsuyo Nakamura, Masakazu Fuji, Father Wilhelm Kleinsorge, who later becomes Makoto Takakura, Dr. Terafumi Sasaki, and Toshiko Sasaki, who becomes Sister Dominique Sasaki later. As with the theme of our course, these 6 people made choices that led to them coming together in comfort in that confusing and devastating time. I hope you find their stories interesting and enlightening. The final slide is comprised of the Works Cited, which is in almost proper ML8 form. So right here, the second line would normally be indented 5 spaces. However, if you would like to know more information on Franklin D. Roosevelt, the Pacific War, or on John Hersey, I will include links below in this same module. Alright, now you can read with all this background knowledge, and I will see you all next week.